All right, so thank you everyone for joining us tonight for the 2021 Summer Games Athletics Pre-Competition webinar. Tonight it'll be myself and also Ron Freeman, who's the competition director, joining us to explain to you what Summer Games will look like, kind of provide some clarity. As I know, it's been an interesting last couple months trying to get information and pass it on to you as soon as we know. But there's a lot of information that will be very helpful for you at this point. And tonight, I think you will leave feeling a little more comforted and understand about how June 13th will look. So as a reminder, this webinar is being recorded. Just a reminder here with Zoom, if you have a question, please put it in chat. I'll work to monitor that at the same time here. Ron, please feel free to let me know if something comes in that I miss here. Also, feel free to use the little raise your hand button. That'll be an easy way for me to know that you have a question and we'll get to you. But I asked you hold them to the end only because a lot of the information, though we touched on it at certain points, is expanded as we go through the slides a little bit more. So the agenda, we've gone through the welcome here. Thank you everyone for joining. Looking forward to our first competition, real competition at the state level for a long time. We've had a few qualifiers throughout the last couple months, but this is our big event. So looking forward to it, even at a little smaller scale. The athletes will have an amazing time and looking forward to providing that for them. So we'll cover the competition team, the schedules, the venue map, the competition format, emphasize some rules that need some clarity too, and also sometimes are misinterpreted, and some summer games updates in general, and follow up with the questions and comments at the end of the session here. So here you'll be able to see everybody on the athletics competition team. We have an amazing team. A lot of those individuals, everybody that you see there will be coming back. I know that Ron spent many years working with them and he's really happy with who he has in place. I've met probably half of these people, or at least spoke to them this year. So looking forward to meet them also. They will be in charge of those designated areas that you see there. Their decision outside of a protest and then we reconvene will be final. So please respect everybody there. They've been there, they know what's going on. And if you have questions about an area or an event that's going on, please reach out to that individual first to get the clarity there. So looking at the event schedule here, volunteer check-in will be at 8:15 a.m. Volunteers won't be there before 8, but they may trickle in between 8 and 8:15. The delegation check-in health screening will open at 8:45 a.m. Coaches, please make sure that you are there on the earlier side of that, just because the athletes will be arriving also around that time. So please, 8:30, 8:45, get screened. And that's also where you will receive your delegation packet. We'll have a diagram here in a couple slides and go through that a little bit more. That'll have all your heat sheets, everything that's typically in there for your day. So 8:45, make sure that's written down. Delegation check-in will close at 9:30. So after that point, anybody who has not shown up will be scratched from their event, which is also when opening ceremony starts. So opening ceremonies, regarding that, that will be with all of the athletes in the stands, except for the 400-meter men athletes, which we're asking to be in the staging tent at that time, with only about 15 minutes between opening ceremonies and that first gun. Having those first group down there will kind of get the day started so we don't start behind.
Ryan, that would be men and women because we're going to do the 400s first regardless.
Perfect.
Yeah, to clear up the track. So we'll do that for all the 400. And in case anybody's worried, we're not going to 1:30 a.m. Hopefully we'll be done by 1:30 p.m.
Yes, that would be the goal, Ron. Thank you for saying that. So venue map here. That delegation spectator parking, which you see up top there, that is known as lot 4. So if you receive emails or hear lot 4 being thrown around, that's what that parking lot is. Towson revamped their map within the last year or so. So if you pull up one from Google Images, it may be different, labeled with a different number, but we will be referring to that and what it is as lot 4. So please park at that area. After you park, you'll proceed to the front or the back of the stadium, actually, where you see the health screening location. There'll be a giant tent there, a few different tables set up Jeff and his screening team will be screening everybody. And with that screening process, we will not be doing temperature checks. It will be a questionnaire. And also at that time, athletes will receive their bibs. So that bib will act as their credential to enter into Johnny Unitas Stadium there. So any athlete without a bib, anybody on our team will assume that they have skipped the screening somehow. So please make sure that they get their check-in done. We'll have a GMT member up there confirming checking them off, hand them their bib, and then they will proceed through that walkway, as you see the red arrows on the right side there, to their delegation seating area, which will be on the left side of the bleachers. So proceed all the way down, and then that's where the delegation will seating be. The spectator seating will be on the other side. So please make sure that you are all the way on that left-hand side. There will be signage, I believe, that we're going to do to kind of show which delegation is where. Still figuring out that little piece, but just know that you will be on that left side and spectators will be on the right. You can see the CC down there, which means control center. That's the location that we typically have it. It will be there again. And then track staging, as we were just talking about, with all the 400-meter athletes being down there before the start of the first game. And then that's where they will be. And field staging will be right next to it over there also. So you may be wondering about awards. If you saw that, that's in the bottom right corner. That will not be near the delegation side. It will be on that spectator side. Right behind that delegation seating will be a bunch of golf carts. It'll be pretty congested there during the course of the day. So we will be on that right-hand side. The awards will be there along with the awards staging.
Hey everyone, this is Steve. One of the additions there is during the check-in process and the screening, that's where the family members will drop off be with the athletes in the screening area. Once the athletes get the competition bib number, that's where the family members will place that on the athlete's front jersey or uniform, and then proceed over to let the athletes meet with their coaches. So again, that's because of the social distancing and everything. We ask for assistance for the families to put the bibs on the front of the athlete at that delegation check-in screening, and then proceed to the delegation area.
Thanks, Steve. Before we move this slide, we will cover some of those pieces in greater detail moving forward. Are there any questions at this point? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
Spectators are getting screened also.
Sorry, Levon, one more time.
Spectators are being screened as well as the athletes.
Volunteers are being screened at that typical location, which will be on the other side of where athletes are being screened. Spectators.
Spectators are not being screened,
Correct,
and they
yes.
don't have the CDW. It's strictly delegation members
Okay,
that are coming from your county.
thank you.
And that's why there's separation there, like we saw in that last picture. Moving on to delegation seating, as we talked about a lot of this, there will be assigned spaces. They are subject to change, but that's what is currently in place. Please know that the temperature is going to be slightly warm. It'll be in the mid-90s or so dress accordingly. With that, it may be windy, so please be careful when you're setting up your tents to make sure that everything's pinned down correctly. SOMD Nord Towson is reliable for any damages to tents. And delegations may be instructed to take that tent down for any reason. Just make sure that when you're setting up, please try to be respectful to those around you. If you've ever been at a baseball game, even an umbrella can be distracting or impair someone's view. So please just be respectful with that. Inclement weather, we covered that one. Mid-90s. Families and spectators, again, this is what we were talking about. If they're not credentialed, they will need to stay in that specifically marked spectator seating, at least 50 feet away. There will be that middle section to separate everybody for those that are not screened compared to those that are screened. Once athletes and coaches go through that health screening, they will not have interaction with their family or spectators until the competition is complete. That is just to comply with the COVID protocols that we currently have in place. So the only way for that to be successful is to have all the coaches on board. I mean, all the parents and athletes on board to understand that in advance. There's a lot of information that'll be going around. We want to meet with those parents and those athletes in advance. So Jeff Abel typically has a webinar with the programs in advance, but this year with all the little details for each sport, we are breaking it out, and then each sports director will be covering and meeting with those families and athletes just to answer their questions, make sure that they're comfortable, and just help the flow of the day proceed the best it can by covering that. So if you have not signed up for that webinar, I would encourage you to also be on there just so you can be aware of what's being asked. So you could also communicate that information to those that aren't in attendance there, but that will be posted on the coaches resource page also. We have 27 signed up at this time. Ron, did you have your hand raised? I think you did.
No, I was just
There's
doing just playing around with my hands. So,
a little
sorry.
wave. All right.
Yep, sorry.
Moving on here. So this is just the layout of the track. This is more for our side of things, just to have a picture of how everything will be laid out. This is a good representation of how the day will be set up, with just a few small exceptions. I think that there will be 2 or 3 different vectors set up, 2 of them which will be used.
I think we'll probably have 2 mini jab and 2 softball vectors. I think will work best for the counts that we have, Ryan.
Perfect. Yep. So that's 4. Then Ron, we talked about having 1 just for a practice area if need be, which may be included in that numbers already. So this is just a good picture to have on hand. If you have any questions on why people are starting one place compared to another, it may avoid some confusion there. With the competition information, so the health screening, like we talked about, it will be in the pavilion starting at 8:45 a.m. And it will close at 9:30 a.m. If an athlete is not screened, they will be scratched. They will have to pass that screening to participate. If they do not pass that screening, they need to get back in their vehicle and then exit, just because we want to avoid anybody who's not passing those screenings combining or being with those that have. So credentials for the registered delegations will be issued at the health screening area. Athletes will use their bib numbers like we talked about. That will have their name, events, divisions, and start times, and they will be attached by safety pins. And again, that will be on the front of them. Family members are encouraged, as many have done in their practices that I've seen or their competitions. Those family members are the ones that help them do that. The reasoning for not having the coaches do that is just to avoid any extra interaction that does not need to be happening from family to family there at the front, and then walk into the screening areas. Yes. So no athlete delegation member will be issued their credential or name tag. If you're a non-athlete or delegation members, we will have a list in advance. If that list does not have that individual, they will not be allowed into that stadium. And that same thing goes with GMT members. We have a certain list and we know who we're expecting. It's just good to have all of that well in advance. If there's anybody that has not been registered, coaches or anything like that, they will not be able to attend without me knowing. And at this point, there's no promises there. So just make sure everybody's in per usual. Once athletes and coaches go through the health screening and walk to the seating side of the stadium, they will have no further interaction. Again, those 2 separate sides. And masks must be worn at all times when not participating. So everybody outside of the athletes will be having masks on for the duration of the day. But athletes, when they compete. Go ahead, Mike.
Ryan, yeah, Shelley put a question in on will there be a limit of spectators in the bleachers? And the simple answer on that, Shelley, is yes, but no. And what I mean by that is I think the seating in the bleachers there under normal circumstances on that side is somewhere close to 2,000. And we are limited to 50% of that. So I would love to have the problem of having more than 1,000 people in the bleachers. But no, I don't, realistically, we don't see that as an issue.
Okay.
but good question. Good question.
Well, I was on the cheerleading webinar last night, and they have a like 120 person limit in
Yeah,
their
much
stands.
smaller. Yeah,
Okay.
they are much smaller. It's a nice
Okay.
stadium, but they're much smaller.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep, good question.
Thank you, Shelley and Mike. So with the order of events here, all males will complete their track events first, while all the females are completing their field events. After that is done, they will then swap. So again, males first will be doing track, females will start with their field events. So we'll start with the 400-meter run, go to the 25, 100-meter run, 50-meter walk, the 50-meter run, and close with the 200-meter run. Those events are kind of spaced typically, like you've seen in past years, solely for the purpose of not having athletes being grouped in back-to-back events. Ron and I have done the best we could to avoid that happening, and a lot of the exit criteria that we'll talk about shortly also would prohibit that in any way.
Yeah, the only, we did the events in that order so that we don't expect too many, there won't be any athletes doing a 425 or any athletes doing a 25 and 100. The only possibility of conflicts is athletes who are doing the 100 may also be doing the 50. So there are a few athletes who may have 15-minute or half an hour conflict if they're both doing both of those. But again, no athlete would be doing a 50 and a 200. So we try to minimize conflicts in our order of events.
On that note, Ron started to allude to it. There will be some athletes that complete their first event and their next one's within 30 or 45 minutes. Something I would like to specifically do is include in your delegation packet highlighted which athletes will be going kind of similarly in that, because what I would encourage you to do is hold off from that athlete going to awards until they are done that second event. So I think having that list will just highlight who to keep an eye out for. Don't have them go straight to awards. Let's have them finish their second event, and then we'll get them awarded after that time.
Yeah, and one of the reports makes that real easy to do. And Ron, doesn't either Jane or Susan typically mark those when people check in so that they know?
Well, they do, but typically I give them a list. I highlight the multi-event sheets so they see it. But I really do believe there are less conflicts with this just because of the order of events and the fact that people could only be doing one field event while they're doing one track event, and we sort of alternated by time, the gender. So I don't think there'll be many. There shouldn't be any with identical time allocations. There are a few with 15-minute and there's a few more with 30-minute, but everybody else should be at least 45 minutes off.
So the maximum effort rule, divisioning is conducted to ensure that athletes compete against athletes of a similar ability level, as you all know. So the maximum effort would indicate that there should be no more than 25% difference in performance between the entry and the final events. So only an athlete affected by this violation or their delegation's credentialed head coach for the athlete may file a protest under the maximum effort rule. So if a protest is filed and it's determined that a violation of the maximum effort rule has occurred, one or more of the following will take place. There'll be a verbal and a written warning to the athlete or coach, adjusted division placement, adjusted final placement, or disqualification completely from the event or competition. And I believe that will be left up to my team, the GMT, to determine that. So please, let's not make that an issue. Let's have people compete the way they've practiced. I assume everything's entered correctly, and let's have a great event there. So kind of just one last piece with the exit criteria. Several are considered fundamental events within athletics. Two of those are the softball throw and the 50-meter race. The exit criteria you'll see there below. For the softball throw, must be less than 20 meters in distance, and then 50-meter race, you must be able to run that in greater than 10 seconds. So coaching during the competition, You've had the whole season to coach. I've watched a few of you, and it's awesome to see how your athletes are growing. It's now time to let them compete, to show off, prove to themselves everything, and to show you what they learned, their families, friends, everyone, and themselves. So please avoid any coaching at that time. No walking, on that side or running alongside that fence line, or coaching during a competition, or that will result in a disqualification possibly. So no coaching at summer games after, I believe, Ron, it's after they're in the staging area, or is it the staging area they could still be coached? At what point does that stop?
Well, there's no coaching during the actual competition, whether it's a track event or a field event. At the very least, if it's a track event, you'll get yelled at, or somebody will. We're really good at that. That's our first level of defense against people who are coaching. But it's really not been an issue. Sometimes it's more of an issue with the field events, especially the shot put so close to the side of where the stands are. So just be mindful of what you can and can't do, and that includes coaches and spectators, families, whatever. Coaching is coaching, whether it's the head coach or not. There is no coaching allowed.
And that's something we stress during volunteer training too. That's been an issue before. Volunteers are trying to help, but instead they're doing something they should not be doing there. Thanks, Ron. Staging for the track events will be held in the large tent. We saw the picture earlier, and then the field events will be in that tent stretched on the side of the track near the scoreboard. So all stretching, have that done in immediate proximity of the athlete's assigned staging rail. It's the coach's responsibility to make certain that the athlete is seated and ready to go at the proper time. And that goes back again, if that athlete has an event 30 minutes after their first one, ensure that they're going to be back in time if you choose to allow them to go to awards. All athletes must be in the staging tent 15 minutes prior to the scheduled start of their event. Coaches, you'll be provided the schedules and everything like that in your delegation packets. In the event that the athlete has their two events close together, they should not go to the awards. The athlete will be able to have their award presented later in the awards area, and the divisions will not wait. If it is time for a division to run, we will stay on schedule and continue on there. So only athletes and registered athletic volunteers will be permitted inside that staging area. Coaches and families, of course, are permitted in that staging area. So awards, I know this is one of my favorite part of events, seeing all the smiles on everyone's faces, and it will be slightly different this year, but within the past couple weeks, it has grown to the point where it'll somewhat resemble what we typically see, which is really exciting. So it'll be held behind the spectator bleachers. The awards will not be placed on the athlete. Typically, it's placed around their neck by law enforcement. Instead, this year, the athlete will take the award off a tray, which will be handed, arms held out by the law enforcement official. At that point, the athlete will then grab their medal, and then they can place it around their own neck if they wish. So law enforcement will be there also to take socially distanced pictures if athletes would like to do so. But while they wait for pictures, they need to stay socially distanced, and we will have people there reminding those to do so, but please just keep that in the back of your head, 6 feet apart from everyone over the course of the competition day. Uniforms and attire, they must be athletic shorts, not jeans or street shorts, athletic shoes. All jewelry needs to be off. I think the biggest issue is typically headphones or maybe necklaces or something. All jewelry that's loose needs to be taken off. Bibs pinned to the front of the uniform, and spikes. Last slide with the uniforms and athletic attire here. Athletes not in the proper uniform will be disqualified. So please check that prior to the athlete entering the staging tent. At that time, you can of course do a quick swap if need be. That goes back to if you have extra shorts or something at your house, maybe you've brought to practice in the past. This may be the event to bring those just in case a quick swap is needed or an athlete shows up and not the right attire there. So any coach who has a question on whether the attire or footwear is appropriate, please check with myself or Ron on that before entering the staging tent. Divisions will not wait for the purpose of a changing session occurring. So needs and equipment, if anyone needs starting blocks, which would be brought from your delegation, please let me know in advance so I have that on record. I like to have that MGMS just so we can know what accommodations are made. I combined the last two. That's separate. I just need to know that in advance, please. And then if there are anyone who will be using a rope or need a guide, please let me know in advance. I believe there's only one for this year, just so we're aware of that accommodation. Protests and appeals. Only head coaches and athletes can file protests, and they will need to do so within 30 minutes of the event. We see the option for athletes to file protests as an excellent growth opportunity, but it also has the potential to be frustrating if they don't understand the process. So that will be the coaches filing those protests and in general. So there are some times that a coach says, I disagree with blank, issues that will be automatically denied if protest is include an official's judgment call, including if the official did not call a violation, divisioning, et cetera. That is not something that can be protested. And then we will see the form on the next page here. Please make sure you properly fill that out. I know that I've seen these multiple times and there's a lot of details to already figure out, but to track you down and try to fill in the pieces before we can even cover the topic that we're trying to address here just prolongs what we're trying to get accomplished. So please have those important fields filled out. I will meet with my team and then we will have a conversation afterwards. And of course, down there, you will see that we receive your approval on that along with a few other people there. And there's nothing wrong with filing a protest. I always say that. You are supposed to stand up for your athletes. So if something sticks out to you, please feel free to fill one of these out and we can make sure that whatever happened was in accordance to the rules that we've had in place well before the event. The code of conduct, in summary here, it's please just act professional and conduct yourself within Special Olympics Maryland. There's spectators there, there's volunteers, there's Towson people walking around. Everybody sees us and associates us, whether we're a coach, volunteer, a spectator, as part of Special Olympics Maryland, and this may be the only interaction they ever have. So please, let's keep a positive outlook, provide a positive outlook, I guess, for anybody who's walking by. Please, no inappropriate behavior. There's a few things that I know that we cover on each webinar that everyone is aware of. Let's be respectful and have a great event. So with Summer Games updates, there's an event guide that covers every piece of Summer Games. It's broken down by sport. Once I send this PowerPoint out, you can feel free to click on that link. You can also access it as you see there on the coach's resource page. And that will be an extended document with all the details related to Summer Games. So results will also be posted on that Summer Games portion along with the coach resource page specifically for athletics. So medical, on that side, it's going to be warm. Please make sure that your athletes bring water. We will have water bottles on site. We will not be having coolers just to avoid a bunch of people touching the same thing. Water bottles will be accessible throughout the day, but feel free to bring your own, of course. Sunscreen, avoid sunburn there. Bug repellent, sometimes there are bugs. I think that was more maybe on the past fields that we've used for bocce as opposed to the turf one here. And then encourage athletes to drink throughout the day. By the time you feel thirsty, you're already dehydrated. So let's just stay caught up on that. Even though it's not a super long day, we're talking about being done by 1:30. Of course, that turf is a lot hotter than what the actual temperature is. And then any athletics event, you will be sweating to begin with. No communal water stations, as we talked about. It will only be water bottles at the events. We will have a team working strictly to be providing ice and making sure all that's kept cold for the course of the day. So here's just what sport director has which sport. I have bocce on Saturday and then athletics on Sunday there. Zach will have swimming at a different location shortly after our summer games. Anger will have cheerleading and softball, and that is their contact information if you need to reach out to anybody on that list regarding questions about your desired sport there. So I do want to move to questions at this point. Please feel free to unmute yourself. I'm sure there are questions, so I just want to take this time to open it up.
Ryan, before you get to questions,
Yes, Ron.
and maybe this goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. Because of the limited number of athletes who have entered this year's games, all our divisions are maxed out at 4 athletes maximum on track because we're alternating lanes. I'm not sure. It's something you're probably aware of, but just for social distancing, so we'll be using every other lane. And because we're maxing out at 4 athletes per track division, we're doing the same thing for our field events as well, to maximize social distancing. And if the best award that you can get on the track is a 4th place, then we want to make it fair, and the best award, or the least award that you can get on the track is 4th place. Then the same thing applies to the field events. So just keep that in mind. Again, probably could have gone without saying, but I decided to say it
No,
anyway.
you can come and we can do it side by side. Hey, Ron, one other note, just so that folks, and I know folks are aware of this. I apologize. I was distracted by this other individual here for a moment. With the smaller numbers, it's highly likely that on the track, at least, heats may be run together, particularly one-person heats, more frequently than they may have under normal circumstances. So typically, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom up in the booth is typically announcing that hey, these are 2 different heats or something along those lines when he's announcing. But just be prepared for that. That could throw people. So
that gets coordinated with. We talk about it before the event. Sometimes we combine. If it's 12-year-old boys and the next division is is men, we won't do that. But generally, we'll combine heats, and Tom will announce it, and we'll coordinate that with the staging area and Dan at the head of the track and edit finish line, so everybody's aware of what's going on. They're very experienced in getting that right.
Yeah. So the coaches just be aware that you may see something that didn't look right.
Yep.
And it's just better to do that than have an athlete run by him or herself. So yeah. Thanks.
Yep, and as Ron and Ryan, I think, have both expressed their gratitude and thanks to you guys as coaches. It's really heartfelt from the office here at headquarters. Obviously, without you guys, it doesn't happen. And I don't know if this was mentioned. I was doing some other things, but we had an all-staff briefing today, and it was mentioned that we are one of the very few programs in the country who is able to host anything like this leading into a summer games. So again, that's just kudos to you guys for putting all the parameters in place to have a safe and successful season so that we are able to have a summer games at lower capacity, but still it's here. So just wanted to thank you. And also remember to thank the volunteers. Without them, it doesn't happen at the track. We thank you guys as coaches. And also the Towson staff who have worked tirelessly as well to make this happen from their behalf. So they're exhausted. They've had commencements, the lacrosse championships, high school graduations, right into our summer games. So, but again, thank you guys as coaches. Heartfelt thank you.
Yep. Thanks.
I don't see any other questions in chat. If you have a question, please unmute at this time. As always, if anything else comes to mind, please feel free to reach out. The best way Besides email would be my cell number, which is listed at the bottom of my email signature there. I'm not in the office every day of the week. Typically, I'm working from home with that set up. So please use that cell. If you call me and I don't have your number saved, feel free to text me. I probably think it's a spam call and won't pick up on the first go around. So just let me know there. Kathy, did you unmute for a question?
Yes, and I apologize for joining late, late getting out of work, sorry.
All right.
Normally for summer games, you know, there's the opening ceremonies, which I know we're not having, at least not the full-blown thing on Friday, but we hand out pins. Are there gonna be pins this year? No, I'm seeing Mike, no, okay. Some of my athletes ask, they collect the pins every year, so. Well, maybe we might try to do something just Carroll County.
Okay. We will give 4 safety pins to every track athlete, though.
That's what
I'm
I
not
thought
sure
you
that
meant,
that
Kathy.
I know what you mean, though. I know. So, but no, sorry.
Anybody else? All right, so I will send out this slide deck tomorrow morning along with posting the recording to the coaches resource page. Feel free to join that family webinar, which will be next week, and encourage your families and athletes to be on that. I know we've posted it in the area memo we send out, but please distribute that so we can get as many people on as we can, just so we can get them up to speed. So everybody's on the same page and the day can go smoothly and everybody can do what they love, participate, do their best, and get on the award stand and show what they've done. So I'm really looking forward to it. This will be my first summer games. So Ron, I appreciate all your help getting me up to speed and your efforts there. So I'm really looking forward to it. If I haven't met you in person, I know we've talked on the phone possibly, or hopefully at this point, please introduce yourself. I'd be happy to meet you, get to know you so we can work together down the road. So at this point, we will close out the webinar. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you have a great rest of your week and a better weekend. And I look forward to seeing you in just over a week. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks very much.